let me just start off by saying thank you so very much for everybody that purchased the kit or the e-packet for my Christmas wishes and mistletoe kisses. So when Carolyn asked me to do a class, I thought, okay, let me do a quick design, something fun, something easy. It's easy, maybe not so quick. There are a lot of little details. So we're going to get into it with, I'm going to move my mouse pad over here so I can move down and my screen down to my thing. Can you guys see that okay? Carolyn, you see that okay?
There's a little bit of a delay. So you know what I'm going to do?
Okay.
I think, people on the Facebook side, please understand that even Zoom and Facebook have changed the way that they communicate. So what's happening is when you change cameras, it doesn't automatically change with you. So yeah, so let me take it out of that again, and I'll force it back in. Okay, it went back in. We're good.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so let's start with the background. So this surface, I do carry it, well, I had something on the background. I do carry it on my website. It is actually a Tracy Moreau surface that CD Wood Cover Distributing.
Sandy,
yes.
Hold up again. It's changed the spotlight view again. So we're going to force it again.
All right.
Let's see.
All right.
Yeah. No. Okay. No, it's not cooperating. Let me. Okay, we're good now. So hopefully it stays that way. Okay.
Fantastic.
On the Facebook side, my face doesn't pop back up.
Let me tell you, I have had a month of internet issues that many people probably watching can attest to. And we just have to go with the flow, right? I just want to bring you guys this lesson and share and show. And again, I'm so grateful that Carolyn asked me to do this and also bring this lesson to you guys and share some fun, creative, easy painting. So I painted the surface. Again, this is from cdwood.com. It's a Tracy Moreau surface. I went ahead and base coated the surface with asphaltum. So asphaltum, I used DecoArt. So one coat of asphaltum covered it beautifully. And then I'm going to use an encaustic 1-inch oval. Now this brush is actually made for hot wax. And if you follow Tracy Moreau, she calls it her fugly brush. So I had to dress mine up. I went ahead and did some Galaxy glitter and glittered the handle, and then I put resin over it because, hello, this is raw wood and kind of boring, and it needed to be dressed up. So I am going to get my brush wet and get out some warm white, all right, and do the background. So a little warm white, and I'll move my palette over so that you can see it better, and a little asphaltum, which is my background color. This color, let me just tell you, if you use a burnt sienna or a burnt umber, hello, have to shake it first. Try asphaltum. It is a great, it has a good gold yellowy content to this this paint color. And let's get some paper towels. So my brush is wet, and I'm going to come over here with the chisel edge of that brush, pick up some of that warm white. All right, just kind of work it in on both sides. You can see how inky and wet it is. I don't want it that wet. I want to be able to see the streaks and the striation of that color. So I'm going to even wipe more off. And I want to pull it down. So very streaky. See where I had too much paint on my brush? That's okay. The fix, if you have too much, is actually just to go back with some asphaltum. Now, I always find that when I pull left to right, the left has great color. Where I lift up on my pressure and pull up, very little. So I just turn my piece. And I pull it from the opposite direction. Again, loading up, wiping off. Sorry, my iPad is across the room and I just realized I did not turn the volume off. So. Okay, so we have our piece with warm white. I'm going to dry that. So I'm going to use the Ranger Heated tool. I carry this on my website. Absolutely 100% my favorite drying tool, more so than a hair dryer. And let me tell you why. It dries it where it is, whereas a hair dryer kind of pushes the paint. This will dry it exactly where that paint is. And it dries, you can hear it's very quiet, right? Very, very quiet. And that's dry. And I just do the hand test. So once that's dry, I rinse that brush out. Come over here with that same chisel edge on that brush, pick up a little bit of the asphaltum. That in, again, swipe it across your paper towel. I'm just going to flip that. You can see I've used that one today. Swipe that. And then I just want to come back and add a little bit more of that asphaltum in. That it has such a beautiful golden brown color to it that it, I don't know, it just kind of diffuses and gives that wood grain look. If you get too much, all you have to do is take a paper towel and wipe it off. But I like to bring that back into my wood grain. And then I will take a paper towel, clean. And I like the Viva, they're soft and they're great for your brushes. And then I'm just going to wipe that back very lightly. I'm not pushing hard. It's a very light pressure. Okay. And then let's dry that. Now that's looking quite dark on my screen. It's not that dark. But I'm going to show you, if you do get it too dark, it's an easy fix. Again, quick drying, amazing, amazing tool. And if I didn't mention ART, all capital letters, you can use on my website for a discount, ART. So I picked up a little bit more warm white. I'm going to swipe it across my paper towel. I do like to turn it so I can pull it this way. I have more control of my hand than when I pull it this way. All right, so again, add a little bit more warm white. Our snowman's going to be here, so don't make it too light in that area. Okay, just to get that wood grain effect. Absolutely love that technique. So we'll move that to the side after we dry it. After we dry that really well. I'm just going to move that to the side slightly, and let's talk about stencils. So stencils are a great way to add interest into your background, into your pieces, without having to sit there and hand draw or transfer patterns of a stencil. So I'm going to lay, this is M242, which I'm out of, by the way. For those that have ordered the kit, thank you so much. I do have, this is my line. M2 stands for M squared, which is Moreau McTier. So I have M254, I believe, on my website, but I'm out of M242. So we're going to get out some warm white. All right, so some warm white, which we already have on our palette, but I'm afraid I'm going to get that brown in it. So I'm going to put out a fresh little dollop. And my favorite stencil brushes. All right, they've got a synthetic bristle, fantastic stencil brush. Load it up, swirl it around. If you're afraid of stenciling, which I hear often, the biggest problem is you go in with too much paint and it seeps underneath. So load it up, wipe it off. You might think it's like wasteful, but it really isn't. It's going to get the job done. So I'm going to softly counterclockwise go in a circular motion and put that on. And I'll just take my finger and rub that out. So if you've painted with me, if you follow me, you know that I check fingers at the door, guys. So I want fingers on your fingers when you're painting. There's nothing wrong with it. To me, it means that I had a productive day. and my brushes were working and my fingers were working. Just put it on and see how it just softens it. Softens that look. You can put them wherever you want.
Hey, Sandy,
Yes.
you're going in and out. Do you think your iPad in the background is affecting that?
I don't have anything on.
You don't have anything on? Okay, no worries. Hey,
Nope.
ladies, another little tidbit. Tell them the secret sauce, Sandy. They got to stick with us to the end, and why?
Because we have some amazing giveaways.
Yes.
We have some awesome giveaways. So yeah, I have nothing on except my ladybug and my thing, but we know Facebook acts up. So
Nope, that's the truth. It's not on this end, ladies, just so you understand, because yeah, it's a challenge.
well, it is, and we'll get through it, right? So
Definitely.
so once you have the snowflakes on where you want them, swipe it with your finger just to kind of get some of that color away. Once you're done with that, you're going to transfer your pattern. And so I'm going to move that away. Come to my piece that I moved out of the way. And we have this. So I did a little prep because with a lesson versus a class, time is of the essence, right? So with my piece, what I did, you can see my snowflakes. I transferred my pattern. I do like to print mine out on vellum so that you can see how it lines up. Sometimes when we base coat, it gets a little bigger, right? But I will say that's kind of actually good. So on vellum, and I just order it from Amazon. You can order any vellum. And then transfer paper. All right. So what I did, I base coated each element of my snowman with white, titanium white. Okay. And then my hat I did with lamp black, but you'll notice I left some bits off, and I'll show you why in a minute. All right. The scarf I did with almondine. This is a brand new 2022 color from DecoArt. So if you don't have that, oyster beige, bleach sand, any beige color will work. The lettering I started, but I left some of it off so I can show you. All right. And I did that with country red. Okay. The arm, which is very basic, but it needs to go on the body, right? So I'm going to put it on the body in a minute, but that is with asphaltum and Payne's Gray. If you're not familiar with the DecoArt media line, the fluid acrylics, amazing. They can be intermixed with your Americanas, folk art, whatever you use. This is a fantastic paint. So let's go to the hat first. And I'm going to skip around and let things dry. All right. Am I still going in and out, Carolyn? Let me know. Hopefully not.
You are, but we could understand you, so it's all good.
Okay. So with the, I'm going to wipe my palette off here. I'm just using a Gray Matters palette. This is Jack Richardson. It's my favorite palette to use. And when you're done, you can kind of just take a baby wipe and wipe it off. Hello. I'm going to load it up with a little bit of lamp black and titanium white. And then it doesn't matter what brush. For this, I use probably like a number 8 or a 6. So a little bit, let's see, what is that? That is a 6. A little black that I base coated this with, but I wanted the underneath of the hat to be different. So a little black, a little white. So you're basically just going to make a gray, and I brush mix. And then right up underneath. And if you need to switch to a smaller brush or a liner or whatever, use the brush that works for you. Okay, so I am going to switch. Just be able to get up in there. So this is just a rigger. But I want to make this as dark as what's on top so that it looks like it flips and folds. Same thing over here. I have a little, I think I kind of made that a little wide. All right, then let's dry that. And then that band, I just did white, just so that green really shows up nicely. Okay, and we'll rinse that. This top part, same thing, black. But if you're afraid, this is my thing when I'm painting. I like to give myself some guidance on where things begin and end. So if you're afraid to base coat everything in one color and you don't know where it ends, leave yourself a little space. So I did that in black first. Now I'm going to come here with black. And paint that area in. Okay, and we'll dry that. It's kind of wet. And then I'm going to take a small Mezzaluna brush. So if you're not familiar with Mezzaluna, this is a Dynasty brush. It's a mixed blend of bristle. Low Cornell used to make them. I think they were called crescent dome brushes or something like that. And when they stopped making them, actually Dynasty had got the rights to make them. So my favorite brush to dry brush with. So I'm going to pick up a little white, work it in. Dry paper towel is key. Dry paper towel. And if you need me to zoom in, let me know, Carolyn, okay? So dry paper towel, and I'm just going to softly dry brush some of that color along the top and along the middle of that hat.
Hey, Sandy, zoom in a little bit, please. I can see you fine on my side
Right.
of Zoom, but on Facebook, it shrinks everything down. So.
Right. Yeah. So give it a minute to focus so that you can see that. All right. Good. Good, good, good. Okay. So again, a little bit of white, and I just dry brushed it here and a little bit along the top. Too much paint. Okay. Now on the bottom, I added that white. Remember to make a little bit of a gray color so that you could see it fold and flip. I'm seeing right here where my line drawing actually got a little wonky. I am going to take that black and bring it right there so that it looks like you can see the flip on the back end of his head, not so much on the, there we go. Just to make that shape correct. Okay, and then I have a zero rigger. I'm just going to take a little bit of white, work that in, and then right along that rim. This is what I was talking about, breaking it up into sections. So I can still see my brush stroke where I put that black on just a minute ago. And I'm just going to pull that brush, very sketchy. You know, snowmen are not perfect. Just kind of sketch that line on with a little bit of white. Use your finger to soften it out. Load it up with some white. And then wipe most of it off on your paper towel. And just tap it in the center, give a little bit of that highlight. You can also use the Mezzaluna to dry brush that on a little bit heavier, but the liner brush works great too, or a rigger brush. A little bit of snow. And then I'm going to add some to the rim as well. Okay, just to, again, get a little bit of that definition. That's way too white right there. So I'm just going to take a little black and soften it out. All right, let's get this gorgeous color, Sour Apple. We'll get some of that on there. We're going to kind of work from the top to the bottom, but also move around and let things dry so that we can move through the lesson quickly. So that sour apple again on a 0 rigger. A rigger, let me explain this to you. A rigger is different than a liner brush. A rigger can go flat. See how flat it can go? It has a nice chisel edge. A round brush goes to the tip. And Peggy Harris had this amazing tip the other day on round brushes or liners, and how, I think it was round brushes, and how you really don't need to roll them. So I typically will roll a rigger brush because I want that tip, knowing that I can push it out to a flat. A nice chisel edge when I go back up to the top to put that sour apple right in that. And I base coated that rim, like a little ribbon area, with white first. Okay, let's dry that. I'm going to stop it because I see a little area that I forgot. Right there. And we'll dry that. Okay. So we'll let that dry for a second. And then if you want to put your pattern back on, you can. I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you line up your, make sure that's dry. If you line up your piece again, and this helps if you're on vellum. If you do, which I normally do, computer paper, you might have a difficult time seeing through the paper. So on vellum, you at least get to see where your line drawing is and where it has grown. But if you feel like you need to put the eyes in, the mouth, the nose, you definitely can do that with this. So I'm going to hold it in place just to show you how I do that. Put a little transfer paper down, and then you want to take a stylus. So a small stylus, or do I have it here? I don't know that I do. I do. I love this Universal Signo. It's a black pen. I have this on my website. I love it. If you want to know exactly where those elements go, you definitely can lay your palette, your pattern. I looked at my palette and said palette. And you can lay your pattern back down and get those elements back in. All right. And then I just hold it in place. Make sure that it's good to go. And then remove it. Okay. Now, if it's too dark, if your line drawing is too dark, instead of erasing it, let me show you a trick. Take a flat brush. Doesn't matter what brush. Just take a flat brush, load it up with some white. My brush is wet. I'm going to load it up with some white. You can see there on the right of the screen, my palette. And I'm going to just lightly go over that line drawing, not my hat. Over that line drawing. Okay. And then let's leave it. We'll dry it. But we have some shading to do. We want our snowman to stand out. Okay. So we're going to do a little shading with some Prussian blue. You can use Payne's gray. There's so many things you can use to shade a snowman. I just have been on this Prussian blue kick last year and this year, and let's shake that. So, but let me tell you, don't get rid of that. That makes a really good floating medium to float your color. So, and I'll show you. So I mixed that or shook that up. I'm going to go to my 3/8 angle, get it wet. Make sure there's not a lot of water in it. This is a really good tester. If you have too much water, it's going to drip down your finger. If you have the right amount of water, it's just going to be wet. Okay, so that's kind of my tester for shading or floating color. So I'm using an angle brush, toe, a heel. So let's load that. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick some of that up. And if you don't have that, don't worry about it. You can just use a little water or a little fast dry glazing medium or whatever, just to get that paint to move. Water works great. Okay. So even though I put my elements on, I did that just so that I can see them. I'm going to put a little bit of that Prussian blue, the hat, and down that right side of his head.
Okay. Hey, Sandy.
Yes.
Sandy, the volume is going in and out, and I asked the people on Facebook because I wanted to rule out it was my laptop issue. So on my other laptop, it's the same thing. So I know it's not a laptop issue. Is there any way that you can switch your speaker?
Let me say. Let me see.
If you go to the up arrow next to mute, does it give you another speaker option?
I just clicked on it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So ladies
Okay.
on the Facebook side, I will continue to monitor it. But I mean, if it's going in and out, there's really not much we can
Yeah.
do to correct it. And if it's blurry, I'm telling you, it's clear on this side. So it's something that's happening that's out of our control as the signals are getting transmitted to the Facebook page. So Sandy nor I can do anything in respect on that one.
Yeah. I was gonna say mine's very clear on my screen.
And so is mine.
Okay. Well, and sometimes, you know, the replay is so much better, right?
Yes, and they're saying now some people didn't have a problem with the volume, but those that were having a problem, they're saying it's much better now. So we're good.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. Well, we just want to make it better. Okay. So we have that Prussian blue again on the 3/8 angle, and I'm just, oh, hello. You can see I had it on the whole brush. Brush out. If you're using an angle brush and it migrates over too far, which it did here, switch to a different area to load your brush so that you only have it on the toe. I can fix that, but it's much easier when you just load it on that toe. Once you do that, you can come back in with your mop brush. So I use an IPC brush. I have these on my website. IPC stands for ink pastel chalk. And this is kind of like a deer foot, but it's flat. So it just gives you a really nice soft touch to that softened mopped look. I usually use my fingers. But we're going to soften that float of color again with your finger if you have to. Come right above that, went a little far. And I only did one coat of the almondine on the scarf because I knew I was going to get into it with the Prussian blue. That's okay. All right. Quite all right. We'll come down the side. And then on the face here, I just very lightly came down and then right above the scarf to give a little bit of color. And then right up underneath that section. So when you think of snowman, what I want you to think about, and that went a little high, I want you to, instead of circles, think of marshmallows. And this is why. When you stack 3 circles of snow on top of each other, and if you Google snowman pictures, the second layer is squished from the first, and the first and second layer are squished from, or the third layer is squished from those two. So think of it more like marshmallows. You're making more of a marshmallow shape instead of a circular shape. If anything is circular on my snowman, it's the face. That's it. So I am going to put a little bit of white right in there, and we're going to brighten that up. So that Prussian blue just makes our different sections. Come back in with a little more Prussian blue right along those scarf lines. And I left the knot open on purpose. Again, anything I can do to help myself when I'm painting to keep things separate, I do. And then a little bit down that side.
You have over 100 people watching you tonight. Woo-hoo.
Well, hello. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for being here. Don't worry about if the face gets blue, all right? Or if anything else gets blue, because you can always come back with your mezzaluna, a little bit of white paint, and you can come in and brighten that up, okay? But you have to have the dark to see the light to see the dark, right? So a little bit more white, and I'll probably pop in a little bit. And I'm just doing a soft circular motion, soft, soft, soft circular motion. When you feel like your paint is dissipating, add a little bit of pressure. When you have a line, like I have a line right there, that's my error for creating that line when I shaded that color on. So just come in with a little bit of dry brushing. You don't need to go back in and fix the shading. That dry brushing is going to help take that away. Okay. The dry brushing is also going to help give it a little more texture for a snowman instead of just being flat and white and no texture. So let's put a little bit more on his face, brighten him up a little bit. All righty. So I'm going to leave him for a minute. Let's go back to our scarf. And I'm going to move to, let me see here, maybe a 1/4 inch angle. Okay, so a 1/4 inch angle, and I'm going to do some plantation pine, which is my favorite go-to dark color. I am going to zoom out just a touch because I know that sometimes when it's that close, you lose some of the clarity and the color. If it's too much, Carolyn, let me know. On that 1/4 inch angle, on the toe only, I put a little bit of plantation pine. And see how I'm working it on my pen, just the toe. And I'm going to come right around the bottom edge of that band of green. And I'm going to float that color on. Okay. So that's going to give you that darker edge right there on that band of green. If you need to make it a little darker, you can always come in with a little Payne's gray or let that dry, which we'll do. Because plantation pine's a really pretty color, but it is quite transparent. And then we'll just do another layer. Okay, wipe that off. I'm just going to use this brush. I'm sure in my instructions I used a liner, but I have to tell you guys, an angle brush can make a great, almost like a dagger, make a great line. All right, think of it like ice skating. Your brush, the chisel edge moves at the same rate. I'm not leaning. I'm not going forward, backwards. I am ice skating on the tippy tips of those bristles, which is going to make a beautiful straight line. Okay, so I'm going to come right here and just pull with the chisel edge of that brush, make a straight line. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter right there. Wipe that off. Come in here and I'm just going to pull, but also tap a little bit of snow on his hat. Okay, cute, cute, cute. All right, let's rinse that out. Let's move on to his facial features. And it doesn't matter what you use, a liner brush, a rigger, whatever brush you have that you like. Black paint is our eyes. And so I'm just going to do kind of an oval eye. That one got a little big, as it does, since standing and painting. The eyebrows, very, very lightly. Just pull a line. Okay. And then same with the mouth. And I loved this. When I sent this design to Carolyn and said, this is what I'm going to do, she said, I absolutely love that heart mouth. Do you remember that, Carolyn? So that little heart mouth, I will tie in with a little heart that's in Christmas.
Oh,
so again, huh?
Nice. Yeah.
Cute. And again, just to make it a little on that whimsical side, which, you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I'm going to rinse that out, come back in with some country red. All right, so country red, let's get on camera. You can use whatever red you have, Santa red, Tuscan red, true red, and we're just going to paint his mouth. How cute is that? All right, let's dry this real quick.
Sandy, I have to tell you, you're even rocking the paint on your hands.
Hello. Excuse me. Like I said, if you've taken a class with me or those I have a membership group. It's called the Adventures of Art and Art Journaling. And it was something I started in the pandemic because I just needed a way to connect with people on a different level. And I love that I get to go into my membership group with my hair in a ponytail, sometimes in my pajamas, sometimes with no makeup, and show and share the things that I love to do. But I always say, paint on your hands means you had a productive day. Now, old school, I know that that is different, and that's okay. But you've got 10 great blenders on the ends of your hands. And I always stress, put some paint on your hand and make it look like you had a productive day. All right, so we have our little cute heart mouth, and I'm going to take a little bit of white. So I just still have, I think this is a 0 rigger. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of white, and I want to get some of that off. So I'm going to swipe it across a paper towel. Get a little highlight on the eyes and a little highlight on the mouth.
They've asked if you could zoom in again.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Again, sometimes it goes dark. So if it does, let me know and I'll just adjust my lighting, which we talked about is another fun thing on Facebook. Sometimes it looks great and sometimes it's too dark. Okay, so excuse me. So the pumpkin, I was going to say jack-o'-lantern or pumpkin spice. The orange that we're going to use for the nose is bright orange, but use whatever orange you have. Tangerine, jack-o'-lantern. But I use bright orange, and I'm just going to load that brush up, kind of like a little C stroke, and then pull that nose. Now, if your transfer paper is super duper dark, then I would recommend that you put a little bit of warm white or white with that. Mine isn't, mine's fine, and then once you put that color on, let it dry, you can go back over it with the bright orange. That will take away that transfer line. That's all we need for that. Okay, and so since I added some white, I'm just going to come back with some bright orange. We'll come back like that. Okay. Now I did come back underneath the and did a little bit of shading. We'll come back to that. We want to let that completely dry. So I want to come in with some asphaltum, just a little bit, and that's what we used on the background and also on the arm. Little asphaltum, a little bit of white. And we're just going to mix a little bit of that. More white to asphaltum. Okay. And then I'm going to swipe it across a paper towel. So let me show you what I'm doing. A little asphaltum, a little bit of white, more white than asphaltum. Swipe it across a paper towel. And I'm swiping it to get that excess off. So I'm going to just kind of dab very little tiny dots to add some snow to his arm and his fingers there holding that mistletoe. Okay. And then I'm going to wipe it even more on my paper towel. And I'm going to just lightly bring some of that color onto his arm. So you're kind of dry brushing a little bit of a highlight on that asphaltum and Payne's Gray arm. Okay. So we'll rinse that out. And underneath, excuse me. Underneath that arm, we'll do a little shading and everything later, okay? So with his hat, I want to come back to that since this is dried, a little bit of black, and you want to carry that like that top of the brim right around to his face, right there, okay? We'll rinse that. I'm going to pick up a little bit of bright orange, a little touch of country red, work that into that rigger brush. And right along the bottom of his nose, I'm just going to do, if you're a coffee drinker, like you like to drink coffee late at night, I can only have it in the morning or my hand shakes. But if not, make your hand shake. You want it to be uneven and kind of lumpy, bumpy, and then right along the top as well. You can slide, come down a little, slide and come down a little. Okay, just to give it a little interest on that nose. So it's not just orange. Rinse out the brush, pick up some white, and we're going to come here and put a little bit of snow right on his nose. Okay, oh, so cute. So we'll rinse that out. Okay, let's go to his buttons. I'm going to stick with this 0 rigger, little bit of black, and I'm going to just very haphazardly paint, not really a circle, but a haphazard circle, these coal buttons on his belly. We want to let those dry. While that's drying, let's go to back to our 1/4 inch angle. All right, so our 1/4 inch angle, I'm gonna get wet, and I'm gonna use a little bit of Payne's Gray. And like I mentioned, Payne's Gray is my go-to shading color for just about everything. You can make the color darker. Again, you can mix it with the Americana, folk art, whatever you use, you can use these in conjunction with. I love the color and the transparency of the media line. So I'm going to put out a little bit of that. I want my palette so you guys can see it. Okay. And then we will take that 1/4 inch angle. The toe only gets a little bit of paint and then work it in. Not too much water. If it starts to migrate or you see a bunch of water on the right side, you want to wipe off your brush and reload it. And then right up underneath his eyes, the toe is right up underneath the eye. And that's going to make him look like a zombie scarecrow, a zombie snowman, right? So if you go that low, like I just did, don't go that low. Take a little white and you can fix it. But we want to stay right up underneath to shade that, the eyes, the nose, even the eyebrows just a little, and then come down to the buttons. So we're going to kind of go underneath and to the right. And that's just going to kind of put those into the body so that they're not looking like they're sitting on top. Now with the arm, I do have it going right to the edge of the body. I'm going to bring it onto the body just a little bit. A little bit of Payne's Gray. A little touch of that Payne's Gray so that it looks like it's going into the snow and not just hanging off the side of the snow. Okay, so let's let that dry. I still, looking at his eyes, I want to fix this right here. We don't need bags under our eyes, do we? So I'm going to minimize the bags under his eyes because I do like that subtle touch just under the eye. And then I also have it on the right side of the nose right here where it meets the face. Okay. Now we'll go back to our little rigger brush or a liner brush, just a little bit of white on the tip. You can use a stylus as well. A toothpick works great, but we just want to do tiny little, well, not that big, Sandy. Hello. Let's fix that one. Don't you just love paint? It's easy to fix. It really is. So 4 little dots to give the impression that they are buttons. And then we will dry that one before we go into it. A little bit more white. Okay. Now let's let that kind of all sit. We're going to go to our scarf. So I base coated it with almondine. Again, light buttermilk, any tan color, beach sand, bleached sand, I should say. I have country red on my palette, plantation pine, and white. And that's exactly what I used. And I just made a little bit of a plaid scarf. Whatever brush you have, probably like a 6, an 8. Look in here to see what I've got. I've got an 8 or a 6. And then get that wet, dry it off. I'm going to come here with my country red, load that up on both sides. You can put these however you want to, but what I did is I started here first, where is my whitest band of color, and put that stripe of country red. Okay. And then I moved over to where I had bigger bands. We need to paint this, but I had a band here, and then I skipped a band there, and then at the bottom, again, this is just country red. You can put the pattern back down and do the lines and everything, or you can just wing it. It really is just a swipe of color, one side to the other. And then I have that band of color right down here. Okay. So again, we'll add that. This has a band of color right here. And that's why I left off the knot, because I knew I'd get into it just like I did when I did the original. All right. So that's country red with the number 8. And then we'll go to a liner brush or the rigger. Load up that country red. Let me come up so you can see my palette. And make sure you don't have any water. When that water trickles down, it makes a big mess. Okay, so I'm going to take that red and just pull some lines and giving it a little bit of a plaid look. Yeah, red and red there. See how I got it on his face and I used my finger to wipe it off? Use your fingers, guys. It's much easier than trying to come back with a clean brush and take that paint off. But you want to do it while it's wet. I'll have a little red over here. And very light pressure. So think of it like you're ice skating, gliding the tip of that brush. That went a little high. That's okay. We'll put a green and a green. All right, let's rinse that off.
Sandy, do you still have kits available for sale? People?
I do. Unfortunately, M242, the snowflake stencil is out of stock, but I substituted it with another snowflake stencil that we have, that Tracy Moreau and I have. So yes, I do. And plenty of surfaces. You can get just the e-packet, just the kit, the surface, with the stencil, surface, and printed packet is what's in the kit. Which, by the way, thank you very much for sharing. And to everybody that bought it, because let me tell you, I was shipping it out like crazy. So lift my heat tool. So I just did that center knot. Okay, we'll get that in place. And while I'm drying that center knot, I'm gonna come right up here and take care of, I still feel like I gave too much of a shadow on his eyebrows and his eyes. Again, as one who inherited bags under their eyes, I don't want to give those if not necessary. Okay. Okay, so we have that center. Now I'm going to come in with some green, plantation pine. And so again, I still have, this is a 0 rigger, but you can use a liner brush, whatever you have. Seriously, use. But you want it thin enough. You can even use an angle brush if it's got a really nice chisel edge. But I'm going to take that green, pull it right to the knot, plantation pine, layer. And then come down here to the third. And then over on this side, you don't see a whole bunch. It's dark, and it's going to get darker when we do the vignette border. So don't worry about that as much. A little green under there. Got a green under there. Above that. And above that. Again, plantation pine. I have one above here. And I'm just using the tip of that brush. See, that one kind of got a little wonky. Wipe it off with your finger real quick. Plantation pine, fantastic color. All right. So let's dry that, and then we'll take care of our knot. He's coming along nicely, guys, and I hope that you're painting along or that you will paint along with the video. And don't forget, like Carolyn said, at the end, I've got some amazing giveaways for you guys. And Carolyn's going to help me give those away. So I do want to come up. When things catch my eye and it aggravates me, I have to take care of it because I'm sure somebody has seen it. Right here where there's a little bit of a divot, which I don't mind too much, I'm going to just put a little bit of white and we'll come back to that, okay? Excuse me. So let's go to our cheeks real quick. Remember our small mezzaluna? We had white in it. And I'm going to put a little more white and some country red. And then let's work that in. So I'm going to wipe that off, pick up a little bit more white, and then let's go right down here. And the reason I skipped is, see how dark that is? I don't want it that dark, but I might want to pick up some of that dark color. If I keep going there with white, I just make bigger puddle. Go to a different puddle. Add a light color like white to lighten it. And if you need to pull from the color, pull from there. But to sit there and try and make that light and bright is not going to happen. So I've wiped off most of that paint. Soft circular motion. So counterclockwise, clockwise. Counterclockwise, clockwise. Make a nice little cheek there. And then it needs a highlight of white. Right there. Okay. And I realized when I did my shading, I did not shade underneath the mouth, but it needs a little bit underneath that heart and underneath the mouth again, so it looks like it's not just sitting on top. And this shading can be much better. This is what I would call wimpy shading, which I can do sometimes. So I'm going to come back in with a little bit of Prussian blue. Load that on my palette. Oh yeah, right there. Much better. Okay. Same thing on those scarves. If you want to add a little bit more shading, don't be afraid to come back and do that. That's one of the last things that I do when I'm painting is to reevaluate your lights and your darks. Make sure that everything gels. Sometimes you just need a little bit brighter highlight, and that will make your shading better. Sometimes you just need a little shading, and that makes your highlight show up even better. Okay. All righty. So let's go to the 1/4 inch angle. Let's go back to that, wherever I put that. And I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray right there on my palette. And right around this knot, I'm just going to do a little bit of shading. So again, like I said, anytime you can give yourself placement and keep things separate, it does help instead of having to constantly lay down the pattern. So then I'll come back and with my flat brush, a little bit of country red for that band along the bottom, which got very wide. And then we'll do some stripes of red and green to finish off that knot. A little bit of plantation pine. And I'm just using, again, this is a 0 rigger, a liner brush, whatever you have is going to work. Let's make that a little bit better. There to there. Okay. So I'm going to rinse that. Let's dry it. Okay. And then we want to come in with white. So I'm going to switch to a liner brush actually. And this is a 10-aught liner brush. You can use the, if you want to, you can use the angle brush if you want to, but I'm going to load it up with some water and a little bit of titanium white. And then I'm going to do a little highlight on the scarf. So remember, I went a little high with that green. If you didn't, you can put a white line above it. Let's put a little one. And then right in the middle. And I like to make them a little shaky, not like real straight. To me, that gives that scarf a little bit of movement. Whereas if it's a straight line, it's very stiff. And then we will come right down here. That liner brush. A little bit of a highlight right there. And then also down this one. Let's minimize where it starts just by touching it. And here, got tiny little dots there. However, I just looked up and noticed that we didn't do lines down. Plantation pine. Need some lines right down to make that plaid on that knot complete. There we go. All right, let's dry it and then we'll add those highlights again. Okay. Sticking with that plantation pine. A little bit of a line. Again, down just to finish that plaid. That's weird. I did that one. I thought I did those two. Obviously did not. Okay. Now, back to that liner brush, a little bit of white. And I'm just going to tap it across my paper towel to get rid of some of the excess, but I'm just going to dot it. Dab, 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 top, top, you know, kind of dot, dot, dot. So it's uneven, and then just touch it with your finger. We're just going to give a little bit of a highlight. And then touch it. A little bit of a highlight. And touch it. Okay, and you can brighten that as much as you want to. Like I do want this to be a little bit brighter right here, more so than anywhere else. All right. So let's move on. I have to cough. I'm so sorry. Let's move on to our mistletoe. I'm just going to take a little bit of this black. I want to thin that down just a touch. Okay. So the mistletoe, I did small brush. You can do a small flat, I don't like a 4 or a 2. There are many different ways that you can paint it. I'm just going to show you the way I painted it on this project. I painted it on many projects differently, but just plantation pine. I'm going to pull the brush. Let me get my hand out of the way. And how is that lighting? Is that lighting okay? Or does it need to be brighter? I'm going to move that camera light. My screen shows that it's bright enough, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's bright enough. It's showing up just, yeah.
So plantation pine, and so I'm just pulling like a daisy stroke. So let me find a piece of paper and show you that stroke. So it's touch and pull, okay? Touch and pull. So kind of like a scroll stroke, a daisy stroke, and it's push and lift. So with that, I'm going to paint in what I see as my mistletoe leaves, if they're leaves. I don't know if they're leaves or not. But then in between, I'll put some Payne's Gray so that they separate a little. So let's dry that. And so I'm going to come back to my zero rigger or a liner brush, whatever. A little bit of Payne's Gray. I went into black, but I actually want Payne's Gray. And just kind of roll that in that brush. And between these leaves, I just want to put a little bit of that color. Kind of separate them and give some darkness. Let me see if I hold that at a different angle, you can see it. It just gives a little darkness between those leaves so that it looks like a bunch instead of a big blob of green. Okay. Come back to the 1/4 inch angle and rinse that off. And we're going to go to antique green, which is a fantastic yellowy green color. So we're going to put a little bit of that out. And then the color we used in the very beginning for our background color, I love to use my background color elsewhere. It just kind of brings and marries everything together nicely. So warm white instead of titanium white. Put a little bit of that out. And then what you have to decide is where your lights and your darks are. So a little bit of a highlight there, little highlight, little highlight. So you leave the dark, but you just swipe on a little bit of a highlight to make those mistletoe petals separate. So on the toe of that angle brush, a little bit of antique green, a little bit of warm white, work it in. I want a little more warm white. And then we're just going to swipe it. Okay, so swipe it on that one there. Swipe it. And don't be afraid to touch it with your finger. Again, that's going to soften that look. A little bit of warm white, a little bit of antique green. And I'm turning it hopefully to keep my hand out of the way. Nope, too much paint on my brush. And if you get it, let me do that one really, really white so I can show you the fix. Because don't you think sometimes the fix is the best part of the lesson? Otherwise, if you don't know how to fix it, it just goes to the unfinished pile. And we don't want that. So I'm just highlighting some of these petals here and there. And we'll rinse that out. Do see I need to brighten one right here. Okay, so that one that was a little on the whiter side, you can just pick up a little bit of that antique green if you need to tone it down. That antique green has a beautiful yellow tint to it, and it'll just make a really pretty yellowy highlight on that petal. Okay, so I do want to come back in, highlight some of these a little more. And let's turn that. Again, you can always double load the brush with the plantation pine, a little bit of antique green and white. I like layering, so that's my preferred way of painting. And I feel like it's easier to fix things when you layer. So if I get too much light, I can always come back with a wash of plantation pine or antique green, versus having to go in and try and fix the entire petal or entire leaf. Okay, so with that, I'm going to, and I really love on my original of all that, I love this brighter one right here. Okay, so I do want to put that in. Little antique green, little warm white. I'm going to pick up a little more warm white because I want that to really show up. Okay, and again, it's habit, but I touch it with my finger. And oftentimes in my instructions in my e-packets, sometimes I'll forget that because you don't know when you've touched your finger for the umpteenth time. But with my lessons, just know that to soften, use your finger. It's too much for me to have to put that brush down and get another brush. Okay. Now, once we have that done, you're like, it's not really separated enough. You can come back with some of the Payne's Gray on the toe of that brush only. And you can come in between them and do a little shading. That's also going to help that look like a bunch of mistletoe, which my brother-in-law used to get paid for. My husband grew up on a 300-acre farm, and he used to go out with his BB gun and shoot mistletoe out of the trees and sell it on the street. And that was his Christmas money. So super cool. You see a lot of it in the South. Not sure about everywhere else, but sometimes when you go back in with that shading, you get into the highlights. If you do, just come back in, highlight a little more. And I was sharing this earlier on a live I did with my membership group, which is called The Adventures of Art and Art Journaling. We paint live 3 to 4 times a month. And what I was sharing with them, which I completely just lost my train of thought, is don't be afraid. It's not a one and done. If you do that shading and you're like, oh, I got into my lights, come back and do your lights again. You have to have the light to see the dark to see the light. And art isn't done in 5 minutes. I mean, layer, layer, layer. And be easy on yourself. Give yourself some grace. Especially when it comes to floating color. Okay. Now, that's it for a second. I'm going to take that brush right into white. And let's just pop in a few berries. You can do red if you want to. I kind of thought the red might be competing a little bit, so I went with white.
Sandy, somebody's asked how much the membership is. Do you just want me to refer them to your website, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website. So you can join monthly or you can join yearly. You can cancel at any time. It's $34 a month, $295 for the year. There's over 120 plus recorded lessons in my group. And we have quarterly free Zoom classes. So yeah, go to my website and get that information, or you can always message me and I'm happy to give you more information. So, Okay, so we're gonna let this set for a second. I'm gonna take my heat tool and dry it because we don't want those berries to go everywhere. I'm sure you guys are the same. When you painted something multiple times, I always love my original more than the second time I paint it. But I have to say there are things on this I love more than I love on my original. And things I love, like I love the facial expression, not so much the bags. But those are easy fixes, right? Excuse me. Okay, I'm still feeling my toe is a little on that darker side, and I want to brighten it up. So I'm going to come back in with a little bit of antique green, a little bit of white, and I'm just going to hit a couple places. Okay, just a couple, because what this actually needs is it needs more dark. And so coming back in with some of that Payne's gray is going to separate those sections for me more than adding more light to it. And then take a liner brush, that country red. I'm going to get that brush wet, load it up with that red. Doesn't matter which liner brush. I don't even know which one I grabbed. It's a Dynasty. And then we want to do the loop with the red. So it goes over the arm. Let me hold that up so you can see it. So I skipped where it went up and over. If you go over it, just put some asphaltum. Hello, let's get on camera. Some asphaltum and some Payne's gray right there, just to make it look like it loops up and over his arm. And then a little bit of scrolly ribbon. This typically I don't transfer the pattern for, because oftentimes your loops are going to go somewhere different. And that's okay.
I do have to take time and read this comment to you from Faye Reed. Sandy gives 150% to the members. She is very generous with her time and talent. So I thought that was very nice.
Oh, I adore Faye. I have a fantastic, fantastic membership group that is very supportive. They always say that I bless them. Let me just tell you, they bless me beyond measure. I'm very, very fortunate that I get to share so much more with them than I do elsewhere. Okay, so I'm going to come back. I want to dry. I want to dry this. Excuse me. And we need to highlight that ribbon as well. But I just realized I missed a little mistletoe right there. So I'm going to pick up a little paint.
Do you sell the Dynasty brushes on your website?
I have a few.
Okay.
You can get them on thebrushguys.com. And if you use Sandy MC, all lowercase, Sandy MC, you'll get a discount. But I sell like my favorites on my website. Okay. So there's our mistletoe. Let's come in again with that 1/4 inch angle, a little bit of Prussian blue on the toe of the brush only. I'm going to pick up some of that. That's just the base of that paint. So it makes a great floating medium, to be honest with you. And then we're just going to put a little bit of that Prussian blue, again, right along the bottom of those berries. And the reason I did that is tying it into that Prussian blue that's on the snowman. Okay. So let's rinse that. And then the shading around the scarf I did like when we did the sections. Again, if you feel like you need to beef that up a little bit, you can. I do need to brighten this highlight right here on that knot, on that section there. And if I didn't mention it, guys, tomorrow's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
I will be old. Excuse me, I got a coughing fit right now. No, I'll be double knuckles, 55 tomorrow. Double knuckles. Hello. Double nickels.
You're still a baby in my eyes.
Okay, and brighten those. Okay. And sometimes even like with the eyes, you know, I'm feeling like those are a little dark. Come back and see how much brighter that is, because it was a little on the wetter side when I put those highlights on. Your white's going to sink in just a little bit. So I'm going to come back with that white, and let's just do a little very haphazard highlight for the ribbon. And I'm just kind of swiping it. I don't care if it goes on the whole thing. Just like that. Okay. And if you need to, let me show you. You could come in with that antique green and a little bit of white. Okay, and see how that even shores up the shape of that mistletoe even more. So you could, I didn't do that on my original, but I want to show you that you can do that to bring those a little bit more into the forefront and have them separated a little bit more. Okay. All righty. So just like on the eyes, I see that this needs to be a little bit brighter, a little more snow on his arm, on his hand, right? Okay. Now let's move on to letters. Letters. So I went ahead and I started with my Christmas wishes, and then I stopped at mistletoe kisses, because you'll notice that I had to do the body. And when things are in the way, I go over them. So let's just make sure everything is dry. Right. And then, excuse me, my zero rigger. I'm going to get it wet just a little bit with some water. Come over here to my country red and work that in. Remember, this is a rigger, so it can go flat, but my letters on this are quite tiny. So if you need to switch to a smaller liner brush, by all means do so. In fact, I'm going to load mine up just in case. Okay. And so I just did one layer of country red right along those letters. Very, very light pressure. Again, it's easier to come back and fill in that letter than it is to push that brush down and do a big, huge L when you don't need a, you know, a big L or a big letter. All right, so do yourself a favor and go slow. And if you have any pencil lines, transfer lines that you did not go to, just come back and go to them or erase them. Maybe they're not necessary. Right there, see what I did? I love these learning lessons. See my E, the center got taken away. I was heavy-handed and I completely went over that center. So just take your brush. I'm getting it wet and drying it off, and I'm putting that right over that center of that E and removing that paint. Okay. So when something that is that tiny, most likely that's going to happen. Right. So the other thing I do, other than, I actually work really closely with DecoArt. So for those that know me, I have the pleasure of working with DecoArt on product development and education and videos. And Tracy Moreau and I have done some amazing things with their education program. And I also travel teach. Before the pandemic, did a lot of international teaching, but I do teach and travel. I do Zoom classes. And it's very hard for me to talk about myself, but Carolyn told me to, so.
Yes, I told her to. And one of my favorite chapters, I should say that because it's a New Hampshire-based chapter, Sandy is teaching for us in September, on September 9th. So stay tuned for more information on that.
Yes, I know, I'm excited.
We won't be a chapter any longer. We'll be an organization of
group. Right, right. But what a fantastic group you have here.
Yes.
So
there's nothing better than the creative innovations community. We
Right.
are an awesome group. Debbie Cole started it and it's still continuing. So this is like her legacy. So, and Sandy, I
Yeah.
know you were involved at the very beginning. So
yes. Yes, when Debbie Cole asked me at the very beginning to be an admin, I was first like floored, like she knew who I was. No, actually we knew each other. But was honored that she asked me. And again, just such a great platform to come and learn and create and watch different artists do different things, because I'm sure you've seen how many snowmen painted, and we all have different ways of doing things. So okay, so I dried that, and hello, how's that for paint on your finger? But I want to come in back to my pattern. That's why, if you transfer your pattern out on vellum, you can line it up and see where you need to go. But those two letters, I could wing it, but I want to show you how to put them on if you're not into winging it. So go back to your transfer paper. And if you have got a really thin stylus, great. I like to use these Uniball Signo black pens. And I think I just have the E and the S. Maybe part of the E. And then before you move it, lift it up and look. Yep, lined up. Great. Okay. So what we want to do now, and you always want to make sure you put the lids back on those Uniballs or they'll dry out. I want to come back to that liner brush or rigger with my country red. And we're going to see that water. That water dripped right down my brush. That's what I was talking about. So when you load up a liner brush, make sure the ferrule has no water on it. Thankfully, it didn't go everywhere. You can also take a fine tip Sharpie, an ultra fine tip that is permanent. My favorite new pen, not sure if I shared that with you guys, is this new Deli Mate. You can get these on Amazon. They have double-ended tips. You can paint over them. You can write over painted parts, and it's not going to affect anything. So if you don't want red letters, you can always go with just black if you're not into lettering.
Sandy, I'd just like to interject because people have asked. You can purchase the pattern packet on sandymcteerdesigns.com. The pattern packet was $10, and if you wanted the kit, it's $16.25. And Sandy, can you just briefly say again for the people that just arrived, what's included in the kit, please?
Absolutely. So in the kit, it's actually $16.50. There's a price increase, sorry, on surfaces. So in the kit, you get the surface, the snowflake stencil, which is M254. It's a substitute because I'm out of M242, and a cardstock printed pattern packet. Okay, so surface, pattern packet, and stencil. And I invoice for shipping after the fact. I do not want to charge at all. The website charges by the item. So I always invoice for exact shipping cost after, not shipping and handling and everything else. It's the exact precise shipping cost to get to you. I do ship internationally. I ship a lot of stuff to Canada, let me say. Excuse me. Okay, so on the letters, once you get the red on, I did a little bit of shading. And I want you to think of this differently than you do like floating color. Okay, so this is a little bit of a cast shadow lesson. You can take your rigger brush and get it wet with a little bit of Payne's Gray. Okay, now I want this very inky. Very, very inky. And if you're unsure of how it's going to look, by all means, test it on a piece of paper first. Okay, but it's easier. You can use an angle brush, and I might have even said in my instructions to use the 1/4 inch angle, but I find it much easier to use this rigger. And basically what I want to do is I want to do a little bit of a shadow underneath the letters. So I'm going to go on the inside of the letters and on the outside, inside, just a little bit of a cast shadow to make those letters stand out from the background. I don't know if that's showing up on camera that well. Sometimes I have to go a little darker. I just don't want you to make it too dark. Okay, and then same thing on those, especially underneath. And let me hold this up. You probably can see it because it's dry. But see, like where the C meets the H. So I have that on the inside, and then I have it underneath. I have it on the inside of the H and on the inside of the H, on the outside of the H. So you're basically just creating kind of like a cast shadow.
And ladies, you've asked about the Ranger craft tool or heat tool that Sandy's using.
Yes.
She's them on her website and they are silent. You know how a hairdryer makes a lot of noise? Turn it on, Sandy, so they, yep. So you can't even hear it. It's that silent.
And what I love about this as well, that heat tool, is it heats it where it is. Sometimes a blow dryer pushes the paint too much. I like that it heats it and it's quick and it's quiet. So especially if you're teaching classes online or just even in your studio, you don't have that extra noise of a, you know, jet engine hair dryer. Some of them sound like now like they're about to take off. So again, you're just going to put a shadow the letters. Let's draw that. I did that for all of the letters. And then, excuse me, let me cough in your ear, a little bit of white. Now, I have two things I want to share with you. You can use a gel pen like this. This is just a jelly roll pen. They use this a lot, like in color pencil and things like that. A Uniball Signo pen. I like the tip on this one better. This one's a little bit thicker. But these are not permanent. So if you use them, you have to use a workable fixative spray or do a quick with medium, but sometimes that lifts the color. So it's a little easier just to use a liner brush in white. So I'm going to load up my liner brush with a little bit of white paint, titanium white. And I want you to see that the highlight is actually on the opposite side of where I did the shading. So it's on the left of each letter. I'm just going to very lightly pull the tip of that brush. And the faster you do it, I promise you, the better it's going to look. If you go really slow, it just gets a little thick. So just kind of swipe it on and swipe it along that heart there. Again, water in your brush is going to help that paint move. You can use a little bit of, you know, extender medium or my favorite, which is the Josanya Fast Drying Glaze Medium. I actually will have this up on my website next week. I'm carrying this and the clear glaze medium in 8 ounce and 2 ounce. Fantastic product. So let's see. And even after putting that white on, how it sunk in. So if it does, just come back and add a little bit more. So we're going to do a little there. And I'm just going to do Christmas. No sense in you watching me do every single letter. Let's some there. But again, I'm on the opposite side of that shading. Okay. And then let's come back to wishes. Different notes that I wrote out, but again, same thing. Put that white on. This is a highlight. See how much better it looks when you go faster. Okay. So once you get that shading on, let's talk about cast shadows everywhere else. I just love cast shadows. Excuse me, if you follow my lessons and you're in my membership group, you know, we put cast shadow on just about. I want to fix it right. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that flat brush, like a number 4, a number 2 is even better. You can use that rigger brush if you don't have a number 2, some small flat brush, okay? And Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is key. So inky, transparent, but you still get that beautiful shadow look. Again, test it somewhere if you're afraid it's going to be too dark. But let me show you what an impact this makes. So underneath the nose, can you see that? It just cast a shadow on that background. Now, sometimes if I get it too dark, and I tell my screen sometimes shows it too light, so I go a little on the dark side so that you guys can see it. You just want to make it look like that item or that element, like the arm, has cast a shadow on that background. It lifts it up. Instead of being flat, I don't know, it's just an try to in almost paintings. Underneath the hat, even underneath the mistletoe petals or leaves, if you will, just a little. Underneath the ribbon. Okay, and if it's too dark, just lightly touch it with your finger. Okay, so we've got that and the hat. No shading there necessary. Let's do a little under there. Excuse me. So when it comes to the snowflakes, so on my original, I was just looking at those. I have one here and I have some space and I have one there. I put them on at the very beginning, but when you're done, if you're like, oh, I really want a snowflake there, please, by all means, put another snowflake here and there. Got a little one there. Okay. So I'm going to dry everything, make sure it's 100% dry. I love his carrot nose on the one we did tonight. The other one got a little fat. It looks like my original carrot looks like it has some Miracle Grow.
Well, organic versus non-organic.
Right? So, but I'm a huge fan of learning it and doing it, but putting yourself into it. I'd rather see hundreds of Christmas wishes and mistletoe kisses, Sandy's design, in a bunch of different ways. Does not have to be exactly like mine. Okay, one of my favorite things to do is a little vignette to kind of bring everything in, draw your eye into the design, and I do that with a baby wipe. So we're going to get a baby wipe, and I get this asked often, so let me show you. Not that I get paid by them, but I use whatever baby wipe you use. You want to make sure that it is lotion free, and I even do fragrance free. All right. So it doesn't matter. I've always been partial to Huggies, even when my 3 boys, who are now 26, 27, 28 years old, 15 months to the day. This is the brand I use. So I'm going to wrap my finger, my index finger, with that baby wipe and just kind of push that right into the center. And with this finger, kind of pull that down. So basically, instead of shading or floating color with an angle brush, I'm going to do it with my index finger. And I have some asphaltum, but I actually want to get some asphaltum, some room to work that into my finger applicator. So with the tip of my finger, I'm going to pick up some of that color and just go back and forth with it, just like you would loading an angle brush, a flat brush on one corner, and work that into your brush. Okay. And then this is key. Your palm, your wrist, your hand needs to be on the inside of your surface. If I'm here, what it's going to do is it's going to leave a very harsh line. So I want to be on the inside, and I'm just going to lightly rub that color on and round those corners. Now, guess what? I right over the snowman, everything. Again, it just brings your whole design together, draws your eye in, and then go
That
right
is
around
so easier than floating, I have to say.
right. And then if you want to darken it at all, you can add a little touch of Payne's Gray to that mix. Come right back down to your same runway. So a little Payne's Gray. Only if you want to darken it. Before you darken, look and see if you need to add that color or not. If anywhere, maybe on the corners, or along the top, but it doesn't have to go on the whole top. Again, it just kind of draws and brings your eye in. Now, one thing that's sticking out to me that I want to share real quick, as a fix, if you need to, if your snowman's looking, we know white things are not just white. White has to have some kind of color, lavender, purple, brown, Payne's Gray, green, something. White is not just white. So we have that Prussian blue that we shaded with, but if you want to add a little bit more white, a little more texture, come in with a Mezzaluna brush or even a flat brush, doesn't matter. Load it up with white, tap it off just to get that excess off. And you can kind of just come in here and tap around some of that color and then swipe it with your finger. That's just going to brighten up some areas that maybe need to be a little brighter and not so blue, okay? But I typically will shade my snowman either with Prussian blue or Payne's Gray. If you use brown, it looks like dirty snow, and I'm not a fan of dirty snow. Snow's really, really pretty in pictures, but I'm also not a winter fan. I'm a summer, southern, warm weather gal. So, but I love to paint winter scenes and winter things. So again, just adds a little bit more white. Tap it in to add some more texture if you want to, but don't cover up all that shading. Okay. Finishing touch, reevaluate your lights, your darks, where you need to brighten something, where you need to lighten something. And I'm just going to show you the difference. Like I said, this surface actually even looks a little bigger. The background on my original has a little bit more of the warm white, and I love that. But I also like the darker because it kind of sets things off a little bit better too. So don't get hung up that it has to look 1,000% like mine, because you see what I just painted isn't 1,000% like my original, right? It's all going to vary. Biggest key is evaluating your lights and your darks, making sure that your colors are good. I just put my mouse there, sorry, so I can switch cameras. And if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to put them here on the feed, on the live. I will go back and look at those. And then also don't hesitate to reach out to me, because I'm happy to answer any questions you might have for our project tonight. So,
okay, ladies, I hope you really enjoyed the program. I did, and I learned a ton of tips. So thank you very much.
God. Thank you guys so much. So let me give you just a couple of ideas with this project. So yes, it's painted on this surface, but it would be amazing painted on a tag and wrapped around a gift, painted as an ornament and put it as part of your gift. Put a ribbon on it and add it to a bottle of wine or something if you go to people's homes for dinner. You can personalize these. If you don't want to put Christmas wishes and mistletoe kisses, put a family name and the year. And again, you can shrink down the pattern, enlarge the pattern, however, but I just think this would make a fantastic little gift tag as well, and gift for when you go to places during the holidays. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to be with some people. And so tomorrow I'm with my parents and my oldest son for my 55th birthday. And I get to go to a craft fair, so I'm super excited about that. But I just have to say, Carolyn, thank you so very much for having me come to teach. I appreciate it, for asking me. And again, it kind of lit a fire to do a quick, fun, easy. I hope you guys found it easy. There are a lot of little bits and parts to it, but it really is an easy project. And I can't thank you enough for being here, for joining me. And again, reach out if you have any questions about this project or anything else, my membership group, where I teach. If you have teachers travel or if you do Zoom classes, I'm happy to do that as well. So.
Okay, so in closure, thank you very much, Sandy. I want to say thank you to the community members for hanging in there. And most importantly, when you get together with your family and friends on Thanksgiving, enjoy that and make sure you pick out your favorite comfy elastic waist pants so you can eat hard.
Right. Yeah. And make sure to get those brushes and that paint out and paint. Paint, paint, paint. There is enough content in this group right here for you to go through and paint something new every single day. All right. And invite your friends to paint with you, your kids, your grandkids. We've got to get some younger generation in here as well. I know y'all call me young, but I feel old. But share your passion and your love for painting. And again, invite them to this group because it's a fantastic, fantastic place to learn. I just realized my camera is like hanging over. But there is so much here to learn in this group. And again, thank you, Carolyn, for having me.
Thank you. Bless you. Okay, everybody, I'm going to stop the Facebook feed. I appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.